Do you know what happened in this picture? Or in this picture? Well, you don't know, I'll tell you then. What happened in this picture is the inflation of money in Japan. So, what is the inflation?
Inflation is the continuous rise in the general price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time, leading to a decrease in the purchasing power of money. There is factors influencing inflation include 1. Demand pull inflation. 2. Cost push inflation. 3. Monetary expansion. 4. Government policies. Inflation can be moderate or excessive, with the difference lying in its economic and social impacts. While moderate inflation is typically manageable, high inflation can harm economic stability. And now we will talk about the inflation in Japan. Japan's first real inflation in over 30 years is causing a revolution across the economy. The weak yen, which was a major driver of inflation, is fueling a tourist boom. Meanwhile, the global semiconductor shortage has moved from being another factor in higher prices to triggering a foreign investment-led renaissance in Japan's tech sector. Capital spending could hit a new record. Inflation affects the Japanese economy in several ways. 1. Consumption and investment. Moderate inflation encourages spending and supports economic growth, while low inflation tends to hinder it. 2. Public debt. It helps to reduce the real national debt, thereby reducing the fiscal pressure on the government. 3. Wages. A modest increase in prices can raise wages, increasing purchasing power. 4. Monetary policy. Low inflation and interest rates are essential to stimulate the economy. 5. Competition. While lower prices can increase competition, they can also stifle long-term investment and innovation. The Japanese government cooperates with the Bank of Japan to curb inflation and promote economic stability through several mechanisms. 1. Monetary policy. Purchase of low-interest rate securities to stimulate lending. 2. Public expenditure. Investment in infrastructure and education for growth. 3. Legislative reform. Tax incentives for innovation. 4. Increased wages. Recommended wage increases to increase purchasing power. 5. Housing subsidies. Provide incentives to stimulate domestic demand. These efforts are aimed at promoting sustainable growth and price stability. Japan faces constant inflation, causing consumers to limit spending and hampering economic growth. The Bank of Japan has cut interest rates on loans and asset purchases but struggles with low inflation. The situation is further complicated by stagnant wages, which prompted the government to promote wage increases to boost economic activity and purchasing power. The graph shows the rate of increase and decrease in the inflation rate in Japan from 2000 to 2023. The blue line represents the annual inflation rate in Japan, which is represented as a percentage. The green bar represents positive inflation, which is the annual increase in inflation. The blue bar represents negative inflation, which is the decrease in inflation. From 2002 to 2008, as the graph shows, the inflation rate was somewhat stable, and the inflation rate ranged from 1 to 2%. From 2008 to 2009, we noticed that there was a very large decrease in the inflation rate, and this was due to the global financial crisis. From 2010 to 2015, we noticed that the inflation rate began to rise again after the end of the global financial crisis. From 2016 to 2019, we noticed that the inflation rate was stable during this period, and it was difficult to raise the inflation rate. From 2020 to 2023, we noticed that after the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, the inflation rate increased significantly. In conclusion, Japan is facing a population growth and a declining working-age population, which is taking a toll on its economy. The country's reliance on exports and global industries makes it dependent on global industries. Despite this decline, radical changes may be needed to achieve economic growth. Japan's experience offers lessons for developing countries.